Don't you know, talking about a revolution, it sounds whisper. Poor people gonna rise up, get their share. Poor people gonna rise up and take what's theirs. Don't you know you better run, run, run?
Okay, welcome everyone. My name is Kimberly, and I'm going to be doing a brief welcome and introduction. And I'm from Oakland, California, and I do work in around public education and the housing situation, getting housing for all, and also do things within the league. I work with the Rally newspaper, Rally Agrupamenos. So, welcome. We're so glad to see all of you here today. Thank you for coming. Welcome to Taking the Working Class Offensive, a conversation with revolutionaries. This conversation is hosted by the Revolutionary Education Collective of the League of Revolutionaries for a New America. We look forward to an impactful discussion with active thinkers and fighters around the country coming together to talk about what we can do to help take the working class offensive, to combine our necessary fight back with forward motion toward a vision for a new society that's possible, that takes care of the people on the earth. We're having this discussion as a 21st century fascism is rapidly developing in the United States. Parents are being kidnapped by masked ICE officers, separated from their children and families, held in inhumane and dangerous conditions, some deported to countries they have no connection to, while the fascists joke about immigrants being eaten by alligators, reminiscent of jokes of the 1800s about Black children being fed to alligators. More than 1,000 Palestinians have been killed by Israeli forces since May while trying to get food, mostly near so-called aid sites. 122 Palestinians have died of starvation, according to the Gaza Health Ministry, of starvation in 2025. Trump's so-called Justice Department argued for a one-day prison sentence for the police officer that was convicted of a felony for shooting into apartments the night Breonna Taylor was murdered by Louisville police. Luckily, the judge decided to give him 3 years instead of a day. The recently passed budget, H.R. 1, or the big BS bill as I call it, will cut almost 12 million people off of Medicaid, make major cuts to food stamps for poor families. Almost 300,000 children aging out of foster care, veterans, and the unhoused will likely lose access to SNAP benefits. And it provides $170 billion in additional funding for immigration and border enforcement, including $45 billion to build new immigration detention centers, including family detention centers, and to hire 10,000 new ICE officers. And we live on a planet that cannot survive much more corporate refusal to end fossil fuel. At the same time that these attacks are happening, the people are fighting back, and many people are organizing. Many organizing efforts are happening, from Know Your Rights trainings and ICE alert systems to street protests and even fighting directly against masked ICE agents' kidnapping of immigrants. By those fighting to end the genocide of Palestinian people by the State of Israel, supported by the United States. South Africa says more than 50 countries have expressed support for their case at the United Nations top court accusing Israel of genocide against the Palestinians. We know that the United States government could stop this right now if they wanted. Today's struggles against the developing authoritarianism and fascism point toward the possibility of fundamental transformation of our society. But to succeed, we need to understand that what we're really fighting against and what we're fighting for. The heart of our problem is private corporate ownership of society's wealth and resources. The current level of science and technology could provide health, safety, and thriving for humanity and protection of the earth. Yet under corporate control, it's creating unprecedented inequality. Our immediate struggles connect to the bigger fight for a cooperative society that serves people, not corporations, where everyone can contribute to society and distribution is based on need, not ability to pay. Every defensive struggle contains the seeds of an offensive struggle. Every fight to protect what we have can become a fight to win what we need. So we look forward to a great discussion today. Again, today's event is hosted by the Revolutionary Ed Collective of the Revolutionaries for a New America. Who is the League? The League joins other revolutionaries who challenge the ruling class on the immorality of its ruthless devastation of the earth and all life. We are a multiracial, multigenerational, multigender working class organization dedicated to revolutionary education plus struggle. We trace injustice to the capitalist system and seek to show how society's problems can be solved when it's reorganized along cooperative lines. Society must be organized so the abundance made possible by science and technology benefits all, a society that puts humanity and nature above profits. So just wanted to mention a few community agreements that I'm hoping we can all agree to. Uh, Today, we're creating a culture and practice of inclusivity, diversity, respect, and love. Creating community for study and struggle, discussing key questions and problem solving for immediate tasks and long haul revolutionary struggle. One, this is a safe space, a space of belonging, collective study and struggle. Two, we want to hear everyone's voice, step up for active listening. Three, we're going to use progressive stack, making space for new voices and those who have not spoken yet. So we'll call on new folks before recalling on people who've already spoken. In order to talk or express yourself, raise your hand or put your comment or question in the chat. We'll be monitoring the chat, but we'd love to hear your voice speak as well. When we do get to the discussion period, each person will have 2 minutes to share their comments during discussion, and then you can get back on stack if there's time. To let speakers know when the 2 minutes is up, there will be alarm clock emojis on Peter's Zoom box. Maybe he could demonstrate his alarm clock emojis so that you see what you'll be looking for. Peter is up there. There's his little alarm clock emoji. So we're all learners and teachers. Bring your passion, your experience, your analysis, your vision, and your strategy. And welcome. And now I'm going to turn it over to Anthony Jackson to start the discussion. Anthony is going to be introducing the first few questions and discussing it. Then Shanice Anderson is going to be doing the next question. And then Walter Katz Fishman. So looking forward to a great discussion. Anthony, take it away.
And before Anthony starts, folks, I am putting that entire agenda into the chat as well as the community agreement, so you can see it as we go. It's got the questions.
Yeah. Okay.
Anthony, take it away.
Hey y'all, how's everyone? I hope everyone's good. It's hot out here in Bowie, Maryland. Um, thank you so much, Kim, for opening up. I'm so excited to be here once again with comrades talking about um what are we going to do in this moment, right? Rising fascism. Kim, you said it so well. I wanted to just say that I've been doing recently prison education. And Wally and I always talk about how important fronts of struggles are. And being on the front of struggle in education, providing access to education for those who don't have it, has been it's been great, but it's been very challenging. It makes the work that we're doing as revolutionaries, having these conversations for me, so much more important because I take revolutionary education inside of the prisons. I'm so excited to have these conversations. And before I jump in and give some context for today's discussion, I just wanted to say that we don't have the answers to these questions. That is exactly why these Zooms are conversations with revolutionaries. You all have such a wealth of experience. There are younger comrades that are deeply engaged in fronts of struggles. And we want to learn from you, and we want to share in our experiences and develop a collective vision for what is to come. And we know we have to do it together. So I'll just jump straight in. We know that we've never been here before. We are in a class war against the most violent and warmongering section of the capitalist class. And there are no reforms left within capitalism. We are a diverse working class. We are multiracial, multinational, multigender, and multigenerational. Our lives and the lives of the planet require us to come together in unity, to study and plan collectively, to organize ourselves as a powerful fighting force. Emphasize a powerful fighting force to take the offensive to defeat fascism and win the class war. We have to take working class power to transform our world from a competitive to a cooperative society and to hold our victory. And so we are going to open up with three questions, well, two questions in particular. The first is, what are the main features of defensive struggle, the fight to hold on to reforms and policies won in the past? What are the main features of offensive struggle, the fight to end the capitalist system of private property and endless war? Those two will be encapsulated in question number one. So we be grappling with defensive and offensive struggle. Question number two is, how are defensive and offensive struggles interrelated, right? And how do we use the defensive struggle to go on the offensives to defeat our class enemy, to defeat fascism once and for all, to win the world we need and want, right? We talked about in so many prep calls that these are heavy questions, but we know that with us being together, and again, from our wealth of experiences, we can have a rich conversation about what what do we see as moving forward. And am I passing it over to Shanice to jump us off with sort of what are the main features of defensive struggle, the fight to hold on to reforms and policies won in the past?
Yes, I would be glad to carry the ball from here, Dr. Jackson. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Shanice Anderson, and I currently work for an agency whose mission is to end mass incarceration and over-incarceration, provide access to resources to those that live in marginalized and over-policed communities. I also work on policies and legislation to eradicate the gateway to the prison pipeline and abolish prison privatization. Our question: what are the main features of the defensive struggle, the fight to hold on to reforms won in the past? The defensive struggle is the fight to hold on to our past wins, the reforms, the policies, so that we can enable progression and disable regression. The defensive struggle births social and political movements so that existing rights are protected. Defensive struggles often rely on litigation, public advocacy, and electoral engagement. When I think about defensive struggles, the two that just permeate in my head and come to my mind first are the Voting Rights Act of 1965, a landmark piece of federal legislation in the United States that aimed to overcome legal barriers at the state and local levels. And then also the Roe versus Wade. And that's the fight for women's reproductive rights and the defensive struggle for women's reproductive rights. It refers to the ongoing efforts that we have to protect and expand access to abortion and other reproductive health care services, particularly in the United States. So those are the two struggles that are coming to my mind. But we are in the midst of many, many defensive struggles. And I will turn it back over to Dr. Jackson to talk a little bit more about another form of struggle that we're involved in.
Yeah, we can actually just open up the floor to hear from folks around this question. Like, what do other folks see as the main features of defensive struggle? So, sort of the context Shanice gave with Roe v. Wade, we see that that was a reform that was fight for. So, to be actively engaged in a defensive struggle, does that mean trying to win back reforms that we had before? Like, what does this look like? I just want to open the floor up for discussion around what are the main features of the defensive struggle.
Comments, questions? Kimberly.
I'll just kick it off. So what I see is what I understand defensive struggles are battles that we fight when we're under attack, that we're defending against attacks. So they're reactive, they're responding to what's being done to us. Like right now, we have to try to protect social programs like the fight to cut food stamps, the fight to keep Medicaid, defending worker rights, stopping evictions, stopping gentrification, fighting deportations. Those are the kinds of things that I think of as examples of defensive struggles. But I bet a lot of people on this call are involved in defensive struggles. I'd love to hear about any that you might be involved in the schools and the social services, whatever you're doing.
Thanks, Kimberly. Yolanda, I see your hand is up. Unmute. Can you unmute? Looks like Yolanda's having,
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Yes. We can hear
Okay, 2 minutes. My name is Yolanda. First of all, I think I need clandestine, which is ridiculous because of what I've been through at the University of California. And this has to do with fighting and maintaining reproductive rights. I myself am against artificial insemination and in vitro fertilization. I think a lot of the people, the African American, Black male, the Latino male, voted against Harris because she supported Walls. I saw him on TV. He said that he and his wife could not get pregnant, so they went talking of in vitro fertilization or artificial insemination. And they said the kids looked like them. At the university, my ovaries were taken because they said I had a cyst in my ovaries. I hadn't had my period in 3 months. Ever since then, I've known from what I've seen on TV, the University of California takes people's ovaries, people's sperms, and they put it in other people's stomachs. They lie, they cheat, they steal, the human traffic, and so that's Kaiser. So because of what has happened to me, because I've been beaten up in Mexico and then in San Francisco, the CIA, the government can hear me. So whether I'm speaking now or whatever, my name is very rare. So what I would like to say is defensive. I think we do have to try to what we can regain. It's going to be impossible. The other thing that worries me is that I read the July 3rd league document about the revolution is continuing. As a naturalized citizen, I came to this country in 1959. I cannot advocate for violence because when I file out an application for a passport reissuance, it says if I have attempted to overthrow the government by any violent means, I will lose my passport, I will get deported. Obama passed a law in 2013 which got rid of the McCarthy law that that deported thousands of naturalized citizens, I believe 20,000. And now Obama passed a law that if a naturalized citizen is a threat to national security, we could get deported. So if it's going to turn to violence, I have to step out. I cannot participate. Even during the Zoom, I don't know. So that's where I'm coming from. But I would like to hear, other than violence, what alternatives we do have.
Thanks, Yolanda. Thank you so much. I see Nicole Goodman. Your hand is up. Want to share? Unmute.
Hi. My name
Hi.
is Nicole Goodman, and I'm a social worker at LA Unified School District.
Mm.
And we are constantly on the defensive, and we love our union and feel like unionizing is a huge key to helping protect children, families from all of the things Kimberly just mentioned. So I'm a strong advocate for unions, and I hope we can focus a lot on helping other school districts as well as private companies unionize.
Great. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Nicole. Who else wants to just speak briefly about defensive struggles you're part of, or how you relate to the defensive struggles, the reform struggles? If Marcus, okay, Marcus, go ahead. Marcus, where are you?
Unmute Marcus, please.
Okay.
Everybody, I think defensive struggles is for First Peoples, Native Peoples is the treaty rights, and whether it be ratified or unratified treaty rights. And secondly, the challenging the nation state with a lot of Native nations and sovereignty. That means the treaty rights, the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo that no one talks about nowadays. And finally, the main challenge is individualism in society. What's society's contribution? What everybody organization, and what that means to not only Native people but everybody. That individualism seems to be the and the distraction of younger people seems to be the electronics nowadays seems to be the key thing, and not in the collective action, what we used to call solidarity. Thank you.
Thank you. Is that it, Marcus?
That's it.
Okay, well, thank you so much. Marcus modeled. So is there anybody? Linda. Yeah, Linda.
Yes, I also have been sitting here thinking, what about the attacks on our colleges and universities and the curriculums that they're teaching, and also the public school curriculums being attacked also. We're propagandizing, I mean, that's just awful. And I'm not involved in that, but I do have a degree from a university in history, and I'm furious about a lot of what the universities, especially here in Chicago, are giving in to Trump, backing off of various policies with, for instance, quote unquote, DEI and the curriculum issues.
Right. Absolutely. There are a lot of us on this call who are teachers in one level or another. So thank you, Linda. Anybody else want to say anything about the defensive struggles, the reform struggles we've been part of or are part of? And Peter Tech team.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, hi, this is Peter, and just background, I'm retired now after teaching manufacturing technology for 12 years and being in heavy industry for 13 years. I went through 4 strikes, been in 5 unions, and I've taught economics. So it's a number of people have addressed this, but I just want to make sure that we're really clear. Being on the defensive is not about weakness. It's not about not being militant. And being on the offensive is not about being violent. Nobody on this call and the league does not propose violence. People express their needs and they start to work for their needs, and our rulers bring violence. So there's going on the offensive is not about violence. It's about getting the ball and running with it towards the goal. And that's the difference. Being on the defensive is about trying to get the ball and keeping the offensive team from getting to their goal. I'll stop there.
Thanks, Peter. So we have, I think, 4 folks on stack. We have Steve T, Gloria, Deborah, and Cinnabar. And so after these folks, then let's move to the offensive, and we're going to circle back. So there's plenty of time. But Steve T, you want to go next? I think your hand was up next.
Yeah, I really have appreciated this. We've talked about defensive struggles of a tactical political nature, and of course, that's the foundation of the working class defending itself. But along with tactical battles, our class struggles about thinking, the fighters thinking and understanding, because ideas are so important to the actual struggle. Part of defensive struggles, as comrades have just talked about, defensive struggle not being weak, not being negative, it's fighting to hold on to what you've achieved. Well, fighting to hold on to the values and the knowledge humanity's achieved through its struggle. That's part of the defensive struggle. But a part of thinking that stays within the vision of what has been and doesn't open up to what hasn't been, couldn't possibly have been, but now could be. If the vision stays within a thinking of, well, that's not possible because it hasn't been possible, that kind of defensive thinking actually hurts the struggles. I'm sure we're going to get into that. But not all defensive thinking is, automatically backwards, retrograde. It's standing up for what humanity's done.
Thanks, Steve. I think, Gloria, you are on Stack next.
Yes, thank you. I think that, we've always learning more and more about history, particularly, the involvement of Mexican and migrant immigrants in this country. They've always been on the defensive, but, particularly with regards to the right to employment. I mean, right now, everyone is losing. It's almost like really robbing people that, supposedly agree to self-deportation. People are understanding a lot of things. People are wanting to know really what are our rights. I mean, what is democracy? There's been a protest here in our community every Friday afternoon, and there are people of all colors and mostly all ages, but we have seen a lack of, Mexican people on the line more because they're kidnapping our community. They're profiling. There's, a lot of need to really help each other, defend each other. But there's a lot of new laws. We need to kind of understand where we're at. They're also trying to attack or disappear leaders in our community. And so that part of that is the defensiveness is really at stake. We really need to work on people knowing their rights. So I'll keep it there.
Thanks, Gloria. So I don't know, Deborah, can you talk now, or should we circle back? Okay, Deborah was having some issues, I think. So we'll come back to her. Cinnabar, okay, Jerome, and then we're gonna move to offense. But yeah, so we've got two folk and Deborah if she comes back.
Yeah, I think the recentering of science is so important. We've gotten away from objective, reality, and people sort of make things up whole cloth as they go. That's that, and then, like, for example, the myth that crime is way up in the cities, right? And that book by Alec Castanis, I can't quite call his name. He got a book called Propaganda, and he really highlights, hey, you chant the real scientific facts on the ground. This whole mythology of, hey, the world's more dangerous, and there's propaganda around that. And to obviously this new budget that Kimberly discussed, $140 billion for ICE, that's unfallible, And I think objective reality is just so important, and we're people, I hate to say it, who are trained to take things on blind faith, if you will, and that gets in the way of objective reality, and then even assessment of reality these surveys and everything that would normally happen, Trump has stopped it. You know what I mean? And so, that continuity between, pushing out what is real and what is propaganda, I think keeps us always needing to assert, or defend, scientific reality. And at the root of that is the evangelical movement that says, get rid of science, the earth is made in 6 days, and, women are inferior and slavery is great. And, Black people should be subservient for white people ad infinitum. So these kind of things have to be dismantled. I like the organization called FFRF, Freedom from Religion Foundation, because they go in and dismantle, this load that's been psychologically chaining these MAGA people in. Blind faith is A-OK. And we know that these churches are used for things like money laundering and other things to push an agenda that you and I don't agree with. And like the brother was saying before from the First Nations, hey, this individualism stuff, there's a reason why America is so individualistic and it's programmed in. It starts with, this kind of program. So I'll leave it alone. I'll get off my little high horse, but thank you all for listening.
Yeah, thanks, Inabar. Jerome, and then we'll see if Deborah can talk. Jerome, you're up.
Yeah, hello, everybody. I just wanted to raise one thing. Because I've been thinking a lot about these defensive struggles that we're fighting, like public education, Roe versus Wade, voting rights. These are all things that we thought we had won, that were settled, that we didn't have to worry about anymore. And I think it's important for us to also understand that the ruling class, they really push for us to fight those defensive battles because they know that as long as we're fighting those defensive battles, even if we win, the capitalist system is not under threat. Right. And so I think it's important that we realize that, it was said in the first place, we're in a class war. And if you look at the history of any war, you will know that that war cannot be won on the defensive. It can only be won on the offensive. And that's why it's so important for us to do what Kimberly said. And I wanted to emphasize this before we go to the offensive, that in every defensive struggle, there are seeds of the offense. So grabbing hold of those seeds of offense are critical to our ability to go on the offensive.
Thank you, Jerome and Kimberly. So Deborah, are you able to talk now?
Well, Deborah said they wouldn't be able to talk, Walda.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, good. So Anthony, we're gonna
shift.
Yeah.
So the next question, and as part of this two-piece, the question number one is, what are the main features of an offensive struggle? And through this conversation, something came up that I just want to throw out there for folks to grapple with, and maybe we should hear from some people around this. As we explore the features of the offensive struggle, what does it mean to go on an offensive? Can we also have a conversation around, like, does this necessitate a shift in consciousness? And if so, what does that look like? Right? Because we use this methodology and this mantra for movement building, consciousness, vision, and strategy. So as we're shifting from defensive to offensive, just in terms of the questions that we're grappling with, but Waldo get more about how the defensive and offensive struggle are interrelated. So I don't necessarily want to go there yet, but I just want to have a conversation around, like, it does the offensive struggle and what the features are, and as we explore what they are, let's have a conversation around, does it again necessitate a shift in consciousness? Is my consciousness shifting from defensive to offensive? Is it staying the same? If we're constantly defending ourselves, right? Like, how do we plan for the off? Like, so I just want to open the floor up to that and see what people's thoughts were.
Thanks, Anthony. And the floor is open. I know it's always slow getting started. Okay, Steve Miller. It wasn't slow at all. Hey, Steve.
Hello, everybody.
And Sal.
Let's just take the issue of the destruction of the climate and the ecology. No one can deny that it's the private ownership of the oil that's the problem. Because no matter what anybody agrees to, no matter how many meetings they have, these guys just say, I can say it the way we would say it in Oakland, but I won't do that here. And that's the end of that. So that has to be one of the seeds that we can grab. And more, even in real defensive struggles like public education, for example, right behind it, standing right behind the scene is private property. In one way or the other, it can always be articulated. It can always be shown to address the question, what are we up against? Is it just bad men? I mean, we had a school board rebellion. 80% of the people there said, we know you don't understand because if you did, you would help us. And this was massive. There was plenty of people saying, we're coming for you too. But it wasn't clear that they understood there was a system instead of just bad people on the school board. So that question always arises, and it always arises in the question of the status quo. Is it okay? If it's okay, legislation is wonderful. But if the status quo is not okay, then what are you going to do? Just wait for the judges to play the idiotic games we see every day, and the corporations capitulate, all the media is capitulating, the legal private lawyers are capitulating. They have a deal, they talked about it on public television. You pay $16 million, you can play, otherwise you're out. And they do have various ways that you can link onto that. So the status quo is not okay. And I think private property can be shown to be right behind it on everything. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. I see Sal, your hand is up, so you're up. Unmute.
Okay. I just wanted to follow up on what Jerome said about the seeds of the offensive being in the defensive battles. I think that's so evident on particularly the immigration issues, because what's happened is the polls have switched completely in terms of, this was the issue that Trump wanted to win the elections on, and that was handed to him by the Democrats. And yet this is switching completely, and it's also creating a sense of community and people getting empowered, defending their neighbors, like particularly, I think, like in what we're seeing in LA. So I think the role of the people that are under attack at the hardest, at the edge of the sword, is they got to lead the way forward for the rest, because a lot of the class is still in the shock and awe, and they said, I have a degree, so I was safe. So they're starting to, the American dream isn't a reality for them anymore. And the ones that have been at the cutting edge the longest, I think, can help lead them forward. So that's, I think, what the defensive and offensive, and you really need an organization to tie that together. I'll stop there.
Thanks, Sal. And I see Mario, your hand is up, so you're up.
Thank you. I wanted to pick up on Anthony's question about a shift of consciousness, and then again, of course, jump to the offense and defense discussion that we were having before. And the shift in consciousness that I would like to raise is the fact that I believe we actually have tremendous power, political power. And, we think of ourselves as weak and always be on the defensive, because we're always battling back of all these things. But we do have tremendous political power in our votes. we are the majority of the population, and the majority of the population is opposed to these government policies, whether Democratic or Republican. So, but we're always seduced into selling our votes, giving away our power is what we're doing. When we vote Democratic or Republican, we're giving them our political power. And if we realize that that is our power, that we have power, that's the shift in consciousness that I'm thinking that we need. And then just quickly going to the question of how we use that defensively and offensively. Defensively, we can just stop giving our power away. We can realize that once we realize that when we vote for them, we're empowering them. You could go back to the Declaration of Independence. Governments get their power from the consent of the government. When we vote for them, we're consenting. So if we stop that, that's one of the most tremendous things we can do. And of course, the other part is not the offensive part is we have to create the alternative to a path where we can focus our own political power. I just want to point out real quickly that there's about 250 million voters in the United States. Trump won the election with 77 million votes. And I'm working with the Poor People's Campaign, which says there are 150 million poor people in the United States. We almost have right there, not counting people who are not in poverty or on the edge of poverty, twice as many votes potentially as Trump won the election with.
Right.
And anyway, so I probably am over my 2 minutes, but just wanted to share that. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mario. I see Rose, your hand is up, so you're up.
Can you hear me?
We can, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm on my iPhone. Thanks for this. I've been on a number of these, and typically you don't say anything, but I decided to make a comment, ask a question. I want to try to combine some of the points from the last segment to this. And my question, and I don't know if Jerome or someone wants to weigh in on it, has to do with the last point around consciousness. But the earlier point about the offensive and the defensive are in dialectical relationship. And can we talk more specifically, explicitly about what that looks like? Not either or, but how are they dialectically connected? So that's my question.
Okay. Well, thanks for that, Rose, because that's question 2. Okay.
Oh, okay.
It's
Yeah, that
question
was
2.
great.
And I'm wondering if Jerome's hand is up though. So yeah. Okay, Jerome, you're up, but we do have another 20-30 minutes, right? To really do a deep dive into that dialectical interrelationship. But go ahead.
Okay, yeah. So I just wanted to speak to the first part of Rose's question, and that is this whole question of consciousness that Anthony raised in the first place. I think going on the offensive does require a change in our consciousness. I think we have to, I think the very first thing that we have to do in order to prepare, and this sort of gets to Rose's second question too, because this is something we could do during the defensive, and that is do everything possible to ensure that our actions and our education promotes working class unity and working class consciousness. I mean, we have a level of social consciousness now that people are responding to throughout the country and on a very high level. What we have not done is, and this is a real opportunity when you think of the kind of attacks that are happening in every section of the working class. We have an opportunity to unite the class in a way that we haven't had in many, many years. And the first thing is for to educate people that we are part of this big class. You go from the professors who had, who thought their job was secure, to now the janitors and everything in between. We're all as workers under attack. And the first step toward offensive is to understand that this is a working class war and every one of us is involved in it.
Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah. Lou. Lou is up. I see Peter back. Yeah. So go ahead, Lou.
Yeah, I think this, what Rose asked and what Jerome responded, I think we're really right on the money. I just wanted to give another kind of example or similar thing. And is that one of the things that we're seeing in Chicago is a battle around housing. And obviously housing is an issue everywhere. And much of it is a defensive battle, right? I mean, we're trying to keep the rents from going up. We're trying to fight our landlord to keep us from being evicted and all of that sort of thing. But out of those battles emerge certain ideas that are different. Like, for example, there was a bill introduced to the city council in Chicago for social housing, and that there are discussions going on using really revolutionary texts to talk about that. So this is a way in which this passes over from the let's just get what, keep what we've had, to what can we do to create the future that we want. And I think that's really key. And you can't do that without understanding how much all of these battles are connected to each other. So we see that also in the housing and the immigration issues that are facing us in Chicago and all around the country. The way in which the ruling class is placing it is that there's a shortage of housing, and we've got to keep the housing for the people who are here and send all the others back, right? That sort of thing. Well, the division of the class, out of that division comes the opportunity to recognize how much we're all in the same boat, as Jerome was talking about, no matter who we are. And I guess the last thing I want to say is I think this battle around ICE and the kidnappings that have taken place have really created the opportunity to move forward in a real way. My parents came from another country. I therefore am a birthright citizen myself. And I could, even though I'm 80 years old, it's possible that Donald Trump could say, strip away your citizenship.
Yeah.
Now, I'm done.
Okay, thanks. We are doing progressive stack, and I do say, Joyce, you put your hand down? No? Okay. I'm wondering if because Mario and Peter has spoken.
I took my hand down.
Okay, yeah. Is this something really quick, Mario? Because we really do want to go deeply into the second question, which gets more deeply into how we use the defensive struggle to take the offensive. Very quick. Go ahead, Mario.
Thank you. I just wanted to reply to something that came to me that I've thought about for a long time, that Jerome mentioned, and a lot of people talking about that. We talk about the working class struggle.
Mm-hmm.
And, I just can't help thinking that when we define ourselves as the working class, we're reinforcing the class structure of society based on capitalism, based on how much money have you got, what class are you in. We're reinforcing the capitalist thing, as opposed to, we're working for human rights for all or something like that. So anyway, that's all I wanted to say. We're buying into their vocabulary.
Okay.
We need to escape that. Thank you.
Yes, well, thank you. I am sure that we will be getting into this. It's Steve, can we put you in the next okay. So what we want to do is move into the second question, which I have the task of introducing. In case you've forgotten the question, I will repeat it and then just say a few words. We've already addressed a lot of things, so this is not a new conversation, even on this Zoom. The two parts for question 2, how are defensive and offensive struggles interrelated? So we know they are, and we want to try to figure out exactly what that interrelationship, what that dialectical relationship is. And the most important part is, how do we use the defensive struggle to go on the offensive? And by that we mean to defeat our class enemy, that is the capitalist class and the capitalist system, to defeat fascism once and for all, and to win the cooperative world that we need and want, where all human needs are met, not through the market, and where the earth is healed and restored. I'm going to say a few words, but I'll try to keep it. Peter, time me to 1 minute, okay? Those of us who were professors, and I taught at Howard for 50 years, we tend to talk in 60-minute sound bites. I also—
Okay, Walter, you're on the clock.
I'm on the clock. So I also grew up in New Orleans during Jim Crow. And so for me, becoming a revolutionary, understanding the violence and the terror of fascist state brutality and cruelty is, it's very visceral. And what I want to say that people have said, we defeated fascism in that period. We had the vast struggles of civil rights, labor rights, women's rights, reproductive justice rights, environmental rights, and all of those human rights and earth rights, but they have been eviscerated. Jerome made this point earlier. Every reform that we won, we gave blood for it, right? People were murdered for it, incarcerated for it. That is gone. I get 1 more minute, Peter.
Right.
And so what I wanted to say is I just want to lift up a few other things. So I think the fact that there are no reforms left and that every reform has either been gutted or is on the chopping block is a reality. And one of the things about the transformation of our consciousness is coming to understand the world as it really is, and not drinking the Kool-Aid, not believing the bourgeois lies that have always been lies, but now they're just more blatant. So that has to be a collective activity. It has to be an activity that brings study and struggle into a dialectical relationship. And we aren't going to stop fighting to defend and protect our communities, our co-workers, and the planet. We aren't going to stop, but we have to now understand what folks have said, and I'll shut up so people can really say it themselves, that we have to be a united working class force, and we have to figure out how we are going to take down the capitalist system once and for all. And so we will open up the floor to discussion. I see your hand is up, Marcus, so let's go for it.
Yeah, thank you. There's some of the issues brought up. I'd like to respond by why we are in the stage we are, number one, that we're talking about raising consciousness. We're a historical scene. Where are we in United States, North America, and the global context too? Because that's important. You brought up Palestinians. The opening statement is probably the important statement as far as the vision what's the American dream versus our dream? And I think that's not being talked about. Native nations, by the way, I'm Chumash and do a show American Indian Airways. Within 40 years doing that in my existence, a lot of Native peoples are just on reservation, 3/4 of them in urban areas, a part of this working class. People don't even know what a working class is. So we talk about it here. That's one thing. And for example, the capitalist class versus the capitalist system. I think we rely on, I call him the Cheeto guy, but Trump. And well, what's behind Trump? What's behind Obama? What's behind Clinton? What's behind all those people? And then at the same time, the alligator Alcatraz in Florida that my native leadership is talking about resisting it, but yet within the resistance, whether it be Standing Rock, no one talked about treaty rights. It was the greatest concentration of Native people and their allies to meet someplace. That needs to be done again. But in the working class and the concept, a lot of people within the working class, and no one talks about white supremacy and white privilege. What does that mean within, we're talking about the working class? Like, for example, the ICE raids are a bunch of brown people, but yet it's more about our attack, when you talk about fascism, our attack on democratic rights as we know of it in North America. That those ICE are whether it be LA Thousand Oaks, or be Oxnard, whether it be Ventura, whether it be other Southern Cal or the border area, the militarization of this capitalist system has created the problems within that. And so how do we go to the offensive? Those are questions within, whether it be Native nations or within the communities that said that what deporting the quote unquote undocumented is part of the fascistic or the control, the class control or the dominant class control of all the sector of our society, and we describe what that sector of society is. So sorry, took too long, but those are the questions that never that people don't want to talk about.
Right. Thank you, Marcus. Steve T was on stack before you, Anthony, from the last part of the conversation. Do you want to go now, Steve? You're muted.
There we go. In the chat, Kimberly asked if I could explain what I meant about, or an example of thinking that going from defensive to offensive. I was thinking of the attack of these fascists and all these government attacks. And there was a time when fighting fascism is not only the working classes fight, but there's a section of the capitalists that were fighting fascist capitalists. That's not what we're facing now, which is a new idea for a new time. Now, you can fight fascists in a defensive way, and generally people in this country, whether they use the word or not, they're thinking Nazis. So it's white supremacists, it's the Proud Boys, and that Latino fascist that's been promoting the same policies, this privatization of the government, that's not a fascist. So it's kind of fighting Trump is fighting what's intolerable. And over here in the Democratic Party, they're not fascist. It's like, okay, but let's fight for someone better, AOC or something. That's not exactly what we're facing right now. We have to fight against fascism. I think that's clear. And within that fight, as Jerome was saying, the art of it is within the fight against those people doing that thing, like say the immigration attacks, to not let the thing get stuck at fighting the previous battle. Like in California, a lot of people who are anti-Governor Newsom before for all his abuses, once he so-called stood up to Trump's ICE attacks, you can just see in the social media people saying, yeah, the governor stood up. Well, that governor right before the ICE invasion was talking about pulling undocumented people out of Medi-Cal in the state. So there's a really good example of defending against ICE attacks in a way that does not prepare you for who you're fighting. We're dealing with sets of fascists in this class of various types. Trump just got there first, I think we said recently in Raleigh, someone who wrote that article. It's not that Trump's a fascist and these other people are not. So have to fight defensively, yes. We have to resolutely, with passion, with commitment, those fighters see we believe in that, but pointing towards what we're engaged in now.
Thanks, Steve. Anthony, you're up.
Yeah, I just wanted to sort of like concretize some of this. Part of it is, what does this look like concretely? And so as we look at how the defensive and offensive struggles are interrelated, um, uh, I wanted to ask and sort of put on the floor, if does the defensive struggle mean that we are fighting to end the exploitation and oppression and capitalism? And does the defensive struggle necessarily, if we're fighting for inclusion and equity and acceptance within capitalism, is that part of the defensive struggle? And is the offensive struggle necessarily necessitating that we have a new system? Well, like just thinking about like those things, like, and how do we do both? Right? Like how do we do, like and some folks have brought this up, and Steve, you just kind of talked about it. When we talk about going on the defense, when we talk about going on the offensive, am I both defending what the gains that we have while also fighting for new ones? Or is that all still defensive? Like, I'm just trying to figure out like how to, for young folks that are trying to figure out all of this heady stuff and really want to figure out, okay, I know we have to defend what exists, right? We have to defend African American history being taught. We have to defend sort of folks having the right to bodily autonomy. We have to defend these things. That's a no-brainer. Cool. We're cool with that, right? Um, is there going to be a segment of working class people that are largely a part of defending, and then another section that is a part of developing an offensive strategy? Like, I'm just as, you know what I mean? Like, I want to get into, I'm trying to wrap my brain around it. Like, I'm genuinely asking because I don't have the answer to any of that.
Thanks, Anthony. I'm sure there's some OGs here who can jump in. So I saw your hand is up, Peter. You want to go? I put my hand up because I do want to get on Stack at some point, but other people, I'm encouraging other people to talk before me. Peter.
Okay, so Wally, hit me with the alarm clock if I go over. Directly to Anthony's question, which I mean, we are all struggling with this. We are in new territory, so I think it's a really important question. I'm currently and really proudly organizing with a group of unhoused leaders in Oakland. I won't go into specifics, but these are people who said, we're not going to take this anymore. We want a fundamental change. We want to do something serious. And they're at the point of realizing that no matter how many times they fight against a sweep of a camp, and these are happening constantly in this progressive city, they're sweeping people, they're destroying their belongings, and that's what a camp sweep is. They just kick you out of where you are, and they don't give you a place to go. They push you somewhere else. So they're at the point of realizing that no matter how hard they fight against sweeps, they can't simply stop them. And so revolution is no longer some kind of left-wing fantasy for 100 years from now. Revolutionary change, fundamental change, is a real thing, and we are in it. And we're at the point of having to recognize that we have to fight, we have to organize to build the power ourselves that will let us put in place the changes we need. And so now, when you fight against a sweep, when you fight for better treatment for your unhoused comrades, when you fight for better policies, those are all defensive struggles within the context of an offensive struggle that says we are ultimately going to take away the right of corporations to set prices. We're going to take away the right of corporations to own this housing property. We're going to take away the right of corporations to exist and create billionaires. That's the offensive struggle. It's real. Everything we do to defend anything we have increasingly has to take that into account. And we're seeing people take that up now. So the defense exists within the offense, just like football is a great simple analogy. The offensive line in a football team defends the ability of the quarterback to send the ball to the goal. They defend the quarterback, they defend the pass receivers, but they are on the offensive. Okay? They're not trying to slow down the ball, they're trying to make sure the ball gets to the goal. So that's and our goal now cannot be going back to an old way that was halfway good. And I really liked Marcus's point about white supremacy. We got to understand that white supremacy was created specifically to bring white people under control and get them to accept less than freedom and less than what they really needed. As long as they could get a little bit, and they were better off than the black folks, better off than the indigenous folks. And that is wearing thin these days. It is breaking apart because white people know they're under attack. More and more of them do. We are waking up. So it's an exciting time, and I'll stop there because Walda gave me the clock. I could go on for an hour too. Let me go on for an hour.
Yeah, right. I know you could.
I'm a teacher.
Thanks, Peter. Joyce, we're going to go to you first, and then we'll come back to Cinnabar. Okay?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I think that part of what I wanted to add to this discussion, which has been great, and really on point, is, I think we are all trying to figure out, and probably there's not one way, that in each struggle, we have to figure out what are those seeds that are actually objectively arising in terms of people's awareness about what it's going to take to create the kind of conditions that people can really thrive under and actually survive too. But I think the thing that I wanted to add was just that sometimes we get into a struggle, those of us who've been, fighting for many, many years in different kinds of battles, we get into a little bit of a siege mentality. And I think part of the consciousness process of moving towards an offensive is what we said, even in the defensive struggle, which is someone was mentioning that we really, do have potential power. And in fact, the attacks, these fascist attacks that are coming from all corners of this corporate world, and they are class attacks. We have to recognize that it is a class society that we're living in. They are coming because people are also gaining in their ability to connect with one another and in their ability to fight. It's not like we're just starting the struggle against something. They started a struggle that is being responded to by fascism, and it's a sign of weakness, right? That they have to go to that level to hold us down. And I think that what we're trying to recognize in the consciousness realm is that this isn't some people are speaking to this, the opportunity that is arising in this country, but also globally of folks that really have the necessity to make the kinds of transformative change that really will help all of us. I'll stop there.
Thanks, Joyce. Cinnabar, you are up, and then I do have you, Yolanda. Cinnabar's will go first.
Make sure. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So I think the line of march around universal basic income is a good one to exploit because someone like, I hate to bring his name up in this conversation, Elon Musk and others see some daylight for it. And it seems like from our angle, we were like, of course, malignant end stage capitalism is just, really, really, really something we want to totally get rid of. But I think if these stupid capitalists are willing to admit that UBI is important, then, boom, I would drive that to the max and leverage things around that, housing, healthcare, and all the rest of it. And then the other thing, of course, is going to be climate change. That's another, thing that we're exploiting now. And the youth are organizing, obviously, because, what the handoff, the baton we're handing off to them is not looking so good. So, and then the last thing would be, I really think the womanist or feminist or the energy around the female, the sacred female, as the Native people might call it, needs to be turned up a notch. Obviously, abortion rights and other things that are looking like really, really hard and oppressive, I think could be flipped very quickly, especially when more and more people in general being, disenfranchised, but women in particular, whose wages were never ever equal to men's, are really feeling it. So I'll just leave it there. Thank you.
Thanks, Cinnabar. I want to encourage folks. We have Yolanda on the stack. There's some of you who haven't spoken at all and just want to encourage you to think about raising your hand and speaking. Yolanda?
Yeah, a couple of things. One is that I suggest we start the study circles again. I suggest we read Wages, Prices, and Profit. I know a woman who's a revolutionary, and I'm going to suggest I don't know if she's still doing the educationals. I'm going to suggest you read that book. I think that's an offensive because it recognizes what the league has been saying, to recognize ourselves as a class and how we make the value in the world in this country. So I think that's part of the offensive. I would also like to say that I attended a meeting, a rally in front of City Hall about the deporting, the visa, not allowing, stopping the entrance to the United States for a lot of countries, a lot of Arab countries. A supervisor who's Arabic and an African-American supervisor, African-American, said if we had not broken the law, we'd still be slaves. And the other thing is that a lot of these marches I participated in for TPS or for immigrants, a guy that they wanted to send to prison, Garcia, or I can't remember that guy's name. There was a lot of white people, a lot of Anglo-Americans. I always identify with Anglo-Americans as well. I grew up with them. There were a lot of Anglo-Americans in that marches. And one more thing, I also read that the people that were arrested in the LA protest, 300 of them Mexicans, and many of them, the majority of them, 10 to 20 years in the United States. So it's a real thing that's happening that makes me feel like if I get deported, I'll go to Mexico, but I'm going to fight it. But I believe we got to fight and believe and speak for what's right against fascism, for equal rights for all, for an end to capitalism.
Thank you, Yolanda. Thank you. Other comments? Kimberly, I see your hand is up. So you're up.
Okay, I'll just say a few things, but love to hear from other people as well. I wanted to give a few more examples of, I know for me, like hearing concrete examples is really helpful. So different ways of thinking about a certain problem that we're facing, what's a defensive response, and kind of I put something in the chat. I'm on the board of the rally/Agrupamenos newspaper for the league, and there's an article that we have about getting to the cooperative society that we need, and it talks about something called programmatic solutions, which are kind of ideas that are in between a defensive struggle, or it's kind of part of a defensive struggle, but it points the way towards an offensive struggle. And so, for example, in the housing crisis, kind of our common defensive response is fight this eviction, stop this rent increase, oppose this gentrification. A programmatic solution that could be introduced: public ownership of housing with community control. And that shows that housing is a human right and that it requires taking it out of the profit system altogether. So that's an example. I'll give you one more example in, let's say, job security. The defensive response: fight this plant closure, oppose these layoffs, resist wage cuts. Programmatic solution: we need public ownership and worker control of key industries, or like worker cooperatives. That's a programmatic. But really what it shows is that job security, or really people's ability to support themselves, requires worker control over the decisions in production, in how wealth is distributed. So those are just a couple of examples I wanted to share. Thank you.
Thanks, Kimberly. Sal, your hand, oh, somebody else's, Sal and Linda, and then I'll say something. Okay, Sal, go ahead.
Yeah, I think just one of the things is that the thing that Anthony raised about reform and revolution, I think it's important to look at as scientists, we know that reform is not possible at this stage of capitalism. And well, but we as scientists have, we're thinking maybe several steps ahead, but the majority of people aren't there yet. So I think we have to look at new ideas as the catalyst. And part of it is trying things like universal basic income, social housing, defending your neighbors from being kidnapped, things like that. Those are the training grounds that kind of help to get people to see, yeah, we can do a way better job than these pricks. I mean, they're just hurting our class. So I think that's one way to look at it, because we're forming our army as we go, and we got to pull some back because they want to go too fast. We got to pull others forward because they're moving too slow. And a lot of people then for example, in good jobs with benefits, they want to see, well, let me get those benefits back. But the thing is, we got to go all the way so that it benefits everybody. I'll stop there.
Yeah, go all the way.
Thanks, Sal. I have Linda and then Jerome, and Victoria hasn't spoken yet. So we're gonna have you speak first, Victoria, if that's okay with you, Linda, and then we'll go to Linda and Jerome. So Victoria?
Hi, can everybody hear me?
Yes, we
So
can.
I just want to kind of say I sit on the coordinating committee for the Poor People's Campaign, and we are extremely involved with ICE, and we show up and we're on the front line, and every time we get a call, we're there, and we're teaching people their rights, and we're teaching people different things they need to know as our responsibility. But what they don't get, I think, in this organization is that they don't get the revolutionary aspect of it. The fact that when this is done, there's so much more waiting. There's so much more of a fight. It's not just what we're seeing on the ground level. So I think as my job is to try to, while doing all the other work and working towards what the Poor People's Campaign stands for, I still have to introduce the concept that there's more to this. This is not it. We have to fight much harder. This is just what we're seeing at base level, So it becomes a big challenge for me, because there's not that many people in our organization who are as political and understand that what's really, really, really going on. So I just wanted to share that. Thank you.
Thank you, Victoria. Linda, you're up.
Thank you. Following up on Peter and Kim, plus Gloria, her comment in the chat, Abolish Rent and ICE. There is a wonderful book called Abolish Rent, written by two organizers in Los Angeles. And this is really, I'm on the housing committee of the League, and we're going through this book chapter by chapter with every meeting, talking about it. And it is transformative, radical, how they organized people in tenants unions to abolish rent. And it's kind of an outline of what can be done to get rid of corporations and landlords. Wonderful, wonderful book. And I kind of see this as a future blueprint for the League, I hope, and every other group working on housing, which I do, just to see what's possible and what can be done. I highly recommend book Abolish Rent, How Tenants Can End the Housing Crisis by Tracy Rosenthal and Leonardo Vilkes.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Linda. Jerome, you are up.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention a couple of things. One is I mentioned earlier this whole understanding that we're fighting many of the same fights that we fought and won before. One of the little nuggets in this defensive struggle is to educate people about that. People ask me all the time, why are we still fighting the same fight? And through that discussion, I inevitably bring up that capitalism is the root of all these problems. And until we rid ourselves of capitalism, we're going to continue to fight the same fight. You know, and so I wanted to emphasize that again because, you know, going from the defensive to the offensive is not a switch. We can't just turn it on and turn it off. We got to get prepared for it. And the second point that I wanted to bring up is this whole demand, and I don't, this whole demand around a general strike in 28. I've been thinking about that in the context of this discussion of offensive and defensive, and actually implementing a general strike would be a hell of an offensive demand because it could encompass all of the demands from the communities that we're fighting for around housing, all the demands, all of the offensive sort of demands that people have been talking about. They can all come together under this whole notion of a general strike. The things that we have to do to make a general strike successful, I mean, we have to politically educate people around what the role of a general strike has been historically. We got to politically educate people about the connections that we need to make in these defensive battles that we're going through now in order to have enough relationships developed to call for a general strike and implement it. We have to raise class consciousness in this process. All the things that we would have to do to make a general strike possible is preparing us for the offensive. You know, so I think that's very important. The last point I want to make is, and I want to go back to the comment that someone made about class, you know, the whole concept of class being an affirmation of the capitalist. I mean, you know, that's true, but so is the fact that we live in an oppressive and exploitive society. You know, we have to examine the world as it really is if we're going to resolve the problems that this world presents us. Capitalism presents all these problems. You know, recognizing that we live in a class society is really recognizing where we got to establish our, you know, what do they call it? The bulkhead, where we have to establish that if we can do this, then we can go over to the offensive. If we can unite that section of the class that can be united, we can go over to the offensive from the defensive. Thanks.
Thanks, Jerome. I see Steve. Steve T's hand is up.
I want to just refer to an article that supports what Jerome said, and it's their words. And you can find this. It's called "Politicize the Tech Revolution by Building Class Unity." Politicize the Tech Revolution by Building Class Unity. January 2025, Rally Agrupémonos. And here's some of the things that I'll be brief. Politicizing the social revolution is essential. This process involves connecting struggles to systemic issues and envisioning transformative solutions. And they give some examples of linking immediate questions to broader questions, kind of thing that came up here. A housing protest can spark discussions about the ownership of land and public land ownership and the possibility. A strike can highlight the dangers of wealth concentration. That allows for, as Jerome was talking about, history, ideas like class, but within the struggle practically. Through politicization, immediate concerns become part of a larger framework. And then it says, I'll reading verbatim again, looking ahead, May 1st, 2028 offers a crucial rallying point for deepening the workers' struggle. A collection of unions nationwide and they mentioned some, have invited unions across the country to align their contract expirations on that date for a possible mass strike across sectors and regions. And as those of us who have been plugged into this process know, it's actually not just talking unions, because if these unions move in this way, it means those unions are working with people around Gaza. In fact, this group that's doing this had Palestinians on a Zoom recently with 1,000 people hearing these Gaza unionists talk about that struggle. And they talked about a government that can support that being done to them, can do some stuff here. So that's really, really important article. I didn't write it, so I'm not trying to get credit out of it, but it links with so much of what you guys are talking about. It's so important. And the last thing on that is, please write some of these things you're talking about today. We welcome these articles, and especially we've increased the amount of these articles coming out in Spanish considerably.
Thank you, Steve. So we are actually at time. And are there any last questions or comments? I don't know if people's questions, I'm thinking of Rose, if it got answered. There's one thing I want to say when we were prepping for the call. One of the things about the defensive reformist struggle is that folk in that struggle see winning the reform as the end of the process, right? And when I think about all the thousands of people that have gone out in the street, both around the immigrant struggle and around the Palestinian struggle and the starvation in Gaza, and yet the war goes on. So as revolutionaries, we engage in those struggles, but we understand that the end game is the revolutionary transformation. And so that really does require both study and organization. And I just kind of wanted to mention that. It just goes to the point that these are not separate, distinct, processes, but are deeply interrelated. And revolutionary education and organization and consciousness is really key to all of it. So hopefully, if there's nobody else with a hand up, we'll just go to some last comments. One, thank you all for incredible conversation. And Peter, did you drop the evaluation in the chat?
Yes, I'm about to do that.
We'd love your evaluations. We hope that we will be able to send it out to you along with the video recording of today. Give us about 10 days, if you will. And just a few kind of closing remarks. I want to say that we really hope that some of you will help us with these revolutionary conversations, and that we have one planned for September on the AI digital technological revolution, which is the undergird of the crisis, the crisis we're in. And we'll be getting that word out to you sometime in probably late August, when we've finished that up. Rally Comrades has, what's the rally website, Kimberly?
I'm putting it in the chat now.
Okay, and the League website, put that in the chat. And for those few of you who are still here, I always like to know what you thought of the conversation. So do you want to shout out or put some kind of image up on the screen to let us know? Okay, you were not shout out people. Okay, yes, Mario, that's great. Love to see the hearts. These are hard conversations and they're deep conversations. So Kimberly, Anthony, Shanice, Peter, anybody want to add some, or Joyce? Harding.
I want to thank people for being here today and just participating, the people that I invited and everybody that's here. And I look forward to talking more about it and continuing these discussions. And getting involved in things like this, like, because that's what, like people were saying, that's what we have to do, educate more and more people, help more, like someone else was saying, the American people in general are opposed to what's happening in our country right now. They just don't really understand it and they don't know what to do about it. And so the more we can talk with people and help more people understand little by little, the more we're going to be able to turn this Titanic around so it does not hit the iceberg, but instead goes in a positive direction.
Yeah.
And yeah, thank you so much.
Thanks, Kimberly and Peter.
Yeah, I just want to reinforce what Kimberly just said. People don't have a sense of what they can do or how they can do it, and we lack anything around which we can focus our energies. Keeanga Yamada Taylor said it very well. We need a political party that represents everything we need. We don't have that yet. Sometime in the next few years, a party like that is going to be developed. It's like, it's like predicting a thunderstorm. If the conditions are there, it will happen. So, and it has to happen. We have to, and when everybody on this call is thinking about that need and how whatever we're doing and whatever involved in feeds toward that, then it begins to become a possibility, begins to enter our conversations, it begins to enter our organizing, that the goal is to develop our voice, develop our power, develop our unity, all towards the goal of taking all this property away from these crazy billionaires and getting into the hands of the people who can steward it. The indigenous folks are really right. We need this world to be stewarded, not owned.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. So, thank you. Be safe for the rest of the day, and we will see you at the next one. Just revolutionary organization along with study is really critical. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for my comrades, because things can get rough. So much appreciation, everybody, and we will see you next time.
You all take care.
Yeah, take care, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
Love to everyone.
Talking about a revolution. It sounds poor people gonna rise up and get their share. Poor people gonna rise up and take what's theirs.